Alright, hi everyone, welcome back to another video of Salesforce Makes Sense. This is Himanshu and we are going to cover a very crucial topic for a Salesforce developer in his life, right? Debug logs. So a lot of people say a lot of things are important for a Salesforce developer to know, to understand, to be able to do. But I think one of the most crucial aspects of being a Salesforce developer is actually understanding how your code executes, under what context it does, and what's going wrong with it, which is why it's not working. And that essentially is the skill of debugging, right? I'm not asking you to be a bugger, I'm asking you to be a debugger, right? So Salesforce provisions something called debug logs, right? And these debug logs are nothing but all metadata or essential information about what has happened behind the scenes on a specific transaction. For example, you clicked on the new button on the account record and you are creating an account record. You filled in all the fields, mandatory fields, and you click the save button. Now, what does Salesforce do behind the scenes when the save button is clicked? Right? It might execute a trigger, it might execute a flow, it might execute a validation rule, maybe an approval process, maybe it triggers an email. A lot of things can happen based on what has been set up in the code. Correct? What has been set up in the org. So how do you understand what's happening first, what's happening later, what is going wrong, what is working, where is the code reaching, and why is it not working based on my condition or my criteria? So being able to assess is called debugging, and that debugging comes with understanding and mastering debug logs. So debug logs is something, if I go to Salesforce and if I look at the setup box and if I type debug logs here, you'll see that under environments you get something called debug logs. Okay, so debug logs are essentially nothing but an option for you to actually trace and see what's going behind the scenes and what's happening, and if you want to basically understand more about the transaction or not. Okay, so this is your debug log. It records a lot of things, the system processes, errors, database operations, right? So a lot of things it processes, and you can actually take a look at it with a specific timestamp, meaning you can see the actual execution of your entire thing. All right, now why is this helpful? We write a lot of code, right? When we are told to write a code, we write a lot of code. We end up writing thousands of lines of code, and then something inside it does not work. Maybe line number 148 out of 1500 lines, line number 148 starts to fail. Now, how do you reach to that point that you know that this particular line is failing, right? And why is it failing? And what is the source or what is the culprit behind it because of which it is failing? That's when your debugging skills and your skills of how to debug your own code or someone else's code come into picture. And that's where it helps the most, because the lesser the time you take to debug, the better you can find the problem. I mean, it's not like you have to be super fast, but it's more about you have to be efficient in finding where the problem lies by understanding how to actually skim through debug logs. Okay, let's go to the slide and we'll talk about the key things about debug logs. I don't have a presentation prepared for this because I want to do a real-time thing. We will see this live on action with small code snippets, obviously, but it will definitely help because this is pretty much all my experience around debug logs that I'm trying to give in one single session. So let's see where do you guys reach, right? So let me know at the end of this tutorial, debug logs make sense if you got to get one trick or maybe two new tricks or maybe some idea around how to actually filter out or how to actually do things that are efficient. Okay, first things first, how to set a debug log, right? So you can go to debug logs here and you have this new button. All right, so this new button lets you set a debug log. Now if you see, you get to choose for which user you need to configure it. See, why is this important? Because normally what happens is, right now I'm logged in, right? But tomorrow let's say you are logged in, right? And then there's a third person, some business end user is logged in, and things are working for me and you, but it's not working for the business end user. What could be the reason? Maybe some permission issue, maybe something is not working for that particular user's profile. So we have to ensure that we are tracing the right user to check that debug log, right? So for example, let's consider things are not working for me, so I can choose my user here, right? So what I'll do, I'll just click on this search box and I can choose my user, but I am very well open and available to choose other users based on what do you want to debug, right? And then you can put a start date and an end date. So if you click on this button, it gives you the current date and timestamp. All right, and then you can actually extend this to probably, let's say 15 or 20 minutes or maybe 24 hours, and then you can set a debug level. Now what is a debug level? A debug level is nothing but it's a way for you to tell the system what do you want to track. Now if you see, there is a debug level created in the system which is called sfdc_dev console. Okay, now there are a lot of items that are listed here. What are these? Workflow, validation, callouts, Apex code, profiling, Visualforce, system, database, and Wave and NBA. Right? So you can choose to tell the system that I only want to track Apex code. I don't want to track anything else. How do you do that? You go by creating new, and you create this new log for yourself. I mean the new debug type for yourself. Okay, so you'll just say Apex code only. Let's say this is what you're trying to create, and here you can choose how much information do you need for a specific type of metadata. Right? Do you want to see database related information in your debug log? Yes, I want to see, so I'll just keep it on info. Okay, do I want to see workflow? No, workflows are now deprecated, let's not consider. Okay, what about validation? Yes, I want to see the info. What about callouts? Yeah, I want to see info. Maybe my callouts are failing, so I want to see either finer or finest. What does that do? That gives you more granular debug logs data. It does not, skim through. It gives you more details as fine as you get. So no details, only errors, general information, more details, and the maximum amount of details that the platform can give you about that transaction, it is the finest. Okay, so I've set callout equal to finer, and I want debug log Apex code also I need to be finer. I want to see a lot of things. In profiling is fine. Visualforce I am not currently using. System.debug, yes, I want to see all the debug logs. Wave I don't need, and NBI I don't need. I've never used them. I'll go ahead and say save. Okay, this needs to be alphanumeric, so I'll just put underscore here. Cannot contain spaces. All right, so that's my new log type that I've created, and I can use this log type here in the debug level. Right, so that's how you create or set up a debug log. Now this is the first trace flag I'm putting. All right, so just to get you in terms of what are we essentially doing here, let's say I put a tracking device on your body, right, and then I have the control on where I have a control of seeing where are you going, where are you traveling, where are you stopping, how long did you stop. Right, now the tracking device can tell me about your start point, your end point, the time that you took for achieving that. Right, and somewhere in the middle something went wrong with you. Right, so if my tracking device is capable of giving me that information also, that's basically fine or finer information, I'll get to know, okay, something has gone wrong here with you. I can then reach out and I can probably help you. Right, similar concept. So if anything goes wrong, your trace flag, this debug log that you are setting up here, can help you understand where things have gone wrong and what to work on or what to fix and where to fix. Right, because in a single transaction, if you understand, I'm not sure if you understand the entire gravity of it, but let's say, like my previous example, if you're creating a contact record, let's say the contact is getting created, a parent account is getting tagged, both the triggers are running, there are 3 flows that are executing, 1 approval process has been triggered, 2 emails have gone out, lot of things are happening in the background. Right, you don't get to see that on the front end, everything Salesforce does behind the scenes, correct? But if something went wrong, your account could not get created or your contact did not get created, how do you understand what bit is going wrong because of which the entire thing is failing? Right, what we understood from the governor limits, right? You can check, oh, okay, my governor limit was failing. I was doing a SOQL query inside a for loop. But how do you reach to that conclusion? Debug logs is your way. Okay, so we have set up our basic debug log, and I've set it to 9:43 to 9:59. What is the time right now? It is 8:18, so we do have another 11 minutes. Cool. So this will run for the next 11 minutes, and everything that Himanshu, this user right here, does in the system will be traced, will be tracked, and it will generate debug logs. Where will it generate? You can take a look here in the developer console, and you can simply go to the logs channel, and you see currently it's showing one log already. This is your debug log. This is what we executed in our last tutorial. Right, now let me just go ahead and say save. So as soon as I say save, my debug log is created. All right, see this one, the third one, Apex code only. This is my debug log, correct? And if you want to see all the debug logs, you can see them listed here also. Okay, but a better way to see them is on the debug log on the developer console. Now let me just try doing some transaction. Okay, so if I go to Salesforce and if I go to accounts, and I'll try to open accounts, and if you see, logs will start showing up here. Okay, let me just go ahead and create a new account, and this would be an individual account, and I'm going to say Salesforce makes sense, and I'll give it a rating, and all of this is fine. I'll just go ahead and say save. Now as soon as I save it, a record has been created. If you notice, see, on your browser, on your developer console, you are seeing logs getting created. So you see, it was a very simple thing we did, but 3 logs got generated here, right? And this is where things are running behind the scenes. And if I open any one of the log, which is by double clicking it, you'll be able to see, oh, okay, certain things have ran. A duplicate rule has ran, right? And then another duplicate rule, matching rule has ran here, and then the conclusion is here. So 3 logs for 1.5 or 1 KB each got generated. They started at 820, and then they were all success. Correct? Now, if I were to show you what happened with our previous scenario where we executed that anonymous code of inserting 151 accounts, right? You see, that's a 236 KB log. So it has a lot of information. And if I were to open this particular log, you'll see, okay, this is the entire log. It started from the anonymous window. And if I were to look at this log, it has a lot of information. Now, how do we read it, right? A lot of information is there, how to actually parse it, how to understand where to go, and how to actually skim through it, we'll understand. Okay, don't worry, we'll understand. But the basic idea of creating a new debug log, I hope that is clear, right? So I hope that is clear. You should be able to create logs on your own now. Right? Now we talked about the log levels and the usage, right? Log levels are nothing but that none, info, warn, debug, fine, finer, finest, right? The more information that you need for a specific type of data, you make it more finer. But if you notice, you see this was a 236 KB log. If you make things fine or finer or finest, Salesforce will try to give you as much as data that there's possible, correct? And when Salesforce does that, it will take some time to process that debug log because you have requested maximum amount of data. So this particular log will come as maybe 1 MB or 1.5 MB. So the longer or the larger the log, the more difficult it will be to open it here and debug it, right? And to be able to see it. And that will also compromise your efficiency here because every time a record is getting created. Alright, this is nothing but an Apex log. So that also is an object in Salesforce. See, ID from Apex log. So debug logs are nothing but Apex log records. See, 4 records are created. So a record is getting created in your system every time. So that means you are kind of troubling the system to create a record for your debug log. And imagine each record is of 1 MB or everything is fine, finer, finest. So in that case, a lot of unnecessary information will come in these logs and your performance will slow down. So ensure that the log levels that you have applied right here in the Apex code only, you ensure that you keep very relevant debug levels. You don't put everything as finest. Then you will get a 2 MB debug log. You will never be able to open it. Okay. It will take so much of time. Okay. This happens with batch jobs or processes that run very long. Okay. So always ensure that you are very mindful of your the kind of data that you want to trace on the debug log level. All right. Now going back, now we want to actually read the log. So I have that limit exception log, right? That's a good example to look at. So if I take a look at this log, now how do you read it, right? Now I'll tell you how I read it, okay? Now always understand that every event is mentioned here. See, I'll give you a very quick glance through. You have the timestamp first of all, that gives you the sequence of execution. Perfect. Second, it tells you what event. So code unit started. Okay, so everything that starts, it also ends. Okay, so it started here, everything happened, and then finally the code unit must have ended. Somewhere down below the code unit will end. The code unit finished. Correct? So this was your entire transaction. Correct? And then finally the third column says that the details about that particular line. So a space was allocated for your account, and then probably account variable was defined. Let's look at the code. It was basically, there was an integer variable, right? So some space was allocated. Then one account instance variable came, some space was allocated. The name field was given the test 0 value, and then this happened 150 times. And every time this happened, insert command also ran, which is why the duplicate rule ran. So this log is basically nothing but a repetition of the same thing 150 times. See, this is test 9, test 10. So it's showing you, it's showing you your iteration and what's happening after your iteration. So insert is trying to happen here, duplicate rule has run. So all of this is being shown. Right? Now if you notice, there's one more thing to see here. You see these numbers 4, 3, 2, 1. These are all numbers that correspond or look at your line number of your code. Okay, so you can actually look at, this is line 2, statement execute. This is line 3. On line 3 you have test 11, which is line 3. This is test 11. Okay, and then line 4 is insert. So you see that's line 4. So if you are able to read, oh okay, there's an insert happening which is on 4. So if you know which class it is, you can always go and open that particular line and see, oh okay, this is where the insert is happening. So these numbers are nothing but your line numbers of the code. Okay. So far so good. You are able to understand that you have the timestamp, you have all the events, and you have all the details about that events that's happening line by line and in the sequence of how it is executing. Right? So that's how you can read it. Now, another beautiful thing about reading this is, if you see you got an error, right? You got this error. Now this error has come. So normally what will happen is at the end of the debug log, you will see the error because that's where it will stop. So I'm just going right to the end and you will notice that I'm seeing this error. See, line number 4 has created this error. Insert account, line number 4. See, line number 4. Insert happened and it said me too many DML statements, 151. So I have to come back to my code, see what line number 4 is, and I'll see, oh okay, I put it inside the for loop. This should be outside. So my issue will be resolved. Okay. And here if you notice, you have a section called limit usage, and that limit usage gives you the limits that you are using for pretty much everything that you have in your transaction. So how many SOQL queries? 0. How many rows did you return out of 50,000? 0. See, this is why I did the governor limits before. So how many SOQL queries out of 20? None. But how many DML statements? You executed 151 out of 150. So that's where it failed. It gave you a limit exception on the 151th statement. And this is how you will understand, oh okay, this is the limit I'm breaching. I have to look into how to resolve my code. Okay, heap size, CPU timeout limit, DML rows. So you see, CPU time, how much time did your transaction take? It took 1565 millisecond out of 10,000 milliseconds. What would happen if you went past? It would give you a CPU time limit exceeded error. Okay, timeout exception. So different kind of exceptions are there, different kind of errors are there, but they all pertain to the limit. And does debug log give you information about the limit? See, it gives you this information and you can take a look at it here. All right, I hope a basic understanding of how to read the debug logs has now come to you. Okay, now let's talk about some quick tips. Okay, a lot of people don't know this. A lot of people try to see the same log here. If I show you, if I just say cancel here, see the same debug logs that I see here, right? They are available here also. So you can download them or you can view them. So you can either say view, let me just refresh it here. All right, and I can just click on the view button. So now this will open up in this window like this. But this is very plain. It's very difficult to read and see, right? If it is a very long log, it is very difficult to process and parse, which is why I recommend you to use the developer console. Because you get some easy to do things. Like for example, if you want to filter, see what happened. If I take a look at my log, this log line is giving me a message. It is not a success. It says too many DML statement. This message is coming from the debug log. So always be cautious that this is case sensitive. So if I write too many, I'll see in the filter box, I can write too many. And that will take me to the error exactly. It happened on 756 and exception has been thrown. But what if I write too many with a small t? It will not show it to me. So it is case sensitive, always remember. Okay, so always type exactly what it is trying to show. All right, so that will take you directly to the error. Now it has taken you directly to the error, but how do you see what has happened around it? So now you can just click on it one time and then you can remove the filter box. So then you see you directly came here. You do not have to see the entire code from the starting. You don't have to see it and reach till here. Okay, it automatically got you to the too many line directly. You want to see it again? See filter. I'll click on this line, fatal error, remove the filter. See, fatal error is selected. Very beautiful functionality, very good accessibility. It brings you directly here, and then you can see, oh, okay, this is failing because test 150 happened and 151 out of 150 DML statements occurred. So I have to make changes to maybe line number 4 of some Apex class. Then you start finding the Apex class. You have to go up and you have to see which code unit started from which class. Okay, that's how you'll have to parse it. So you can do a filter, right? Similarly, if you want to take a look at debug logs. So system.debug, remember we have been using system.debug across our project. So if I just say account.name and if I try to execute this, and I'll just not I'll go ahead and say execute. So now it will print a debug statement every time it goes inside the loop so that I know what is the account name. So it has failed. Okay, it has failed, which is fine. If I take a look at the log, now it is a 247 KB. See, I added as debug statement, right? That increased the size of the log to 10, maybe what, how much, 10 KB, right? So if you just understand the way the log expands, right? So it's very important to be very cautious that you don't create a very big log, then it will create problems in your performance. Now if I open this particular log, it is loaded perfectly fine. I can take a look at, oh, okay, too many is the error that came. Oh, okay, it is failing here, all right. But I want to see how the execution went. So if I just want to see only my debug statements, I can click on the debug only. And if you see, there is line number 4 that is a debug statement, and that line number 4 is giving you all the debug. Test 100, okay. It reached till 150 and it failed on the 151st record, 151st record. Alright, so this is how you can use your debug log to actually track the journey. Let's say you have a trigger written, then you have a class, then you have a helper, then you have a util that's calling a constant class, and then finally you are doing an email also. So you can put debug logs at important places to see till where the code is reaching. That will give you a guidance of, okay, it's reaching till here all fine, but then here it is failing. Then you can work on that section. Alright, one more thing that you can do if you are a bit more smart, see the event. The event is called user.debug, right? So if I even get rid of the debug only, and if I filter by typing user_debug, all capital, right? So you see all the debug logs will show here. So you should know what event to look at, right? So why am I saying that? Because let's say you want to see the limit. So you can filter by limit. See, all your limit usage will show directly. So you should be just smart to filter out by the right keyword with the right case sensitivity. Okay, if you want to see duplicate, if any duplicate rule fired, see duplicate detected, something happens, right? Duplicate detection begin, rule invoked, matching rule invoked, end. So it happened for each record. See, it is the same code, the same 5 statements are executing 150 times for each account. That's a duplicate rule that's running. Okay, if you want to see if there is any matching rule, so you can type matching here. So matching rule information will show up, but there's nothing in the code, nothing in the log. That's why you're not seeing it, seeing anything around it. Okay, there's a match invocation, but there's nothing called matching. Okay, so use this filter very bravely. Like you don't have to be cautious using it. You can feel free to use it any and every way. Okay, if you want to see, let's say code unit started, because code unit started will always tell you from where the from where the context has come. Right, so this will tell you, okay, this was from anonymous window, it started, it went to the duplicate detector and all of it, and then finally it did all the duplicates, and that's the places where the code has initiated certain kind of operations. Okay, if you want to see where did a SOQL happen, see, if you type SOQL, you'll see the SOQL queries. All right, and if you want to see, let's say DML, you can see DML. If I type it on the filter box here, you will see DML begin and end. See, insert happened every time on line number 5. So line number 5 is here. See, the line number 5 is from the anonymous window. Okay. So just some good tricks, very basic tricks, but a lot of people don't know about it. Like they don't know about it. So it's very good to use the filter, the debug, and the limits, right? But always be cautious that your log levels and usage is very limited. Okay, don't overuse it. Now trace flags, right? We talked about trace flags. If I take you back here and I showed you that, okay, if you have to create a log for your business user, you can create it here, right? If you click on the new button, you can create it here and you can put a debug level, right? But at the same time, you can actually choose to do more things, right? So if you are sure that, okay, I want to look at this particular Apex class. This class might be creating a trouble. You can always choose the Apex class. So your debug log will run on the Apex class now. So you see, you get to choose the Apex classes. What will this do? This will run the log, but whenever this particular class is triggered, it will show you the debug log, whatever happened as part of that class. So it will not give you the entire transaction, only that particular class and whatever happened inside this class. Okay, so whatever happens inside this class will be logged. So this is also very helpful when you are debugging certain things. Let's say class A calls class B. Class B calls class C, and class C calls a helper C1 and a helper C2. Okay, you are concerned that everything is working fine. You can see the debug log. It is coming from A to B to C, and here in class C there's a problem. So you can explicitly put a debug log on class C. How? By this concept, by choosing the Apex class. Similarly, do you want to put a logger or trace flag on a trigger? Yes, you can choose triggers instead. Okay, so it does not need to be a user all the time. You can choose user, you can use Apex class, you can use a trigger. If you are doing an integration with a third party, right, what do you want to do? You can use a platform integration option also. If then that by default will take the platform integration user, and any and everything that happens as part of the integration will also be tracked. Okay, finally, what about platform events, or let's say flows that run automatically? Let's say, for example, email to case, things that happen via the automated process user. For those of you who do not know what is an automated process user, take a look at it. Okay, it's basically nothing but the automated process user is a Salesforce user. We do not create it. It runs certain things in the background, right? For example, doing chatter invites, for example, doing email to case assignments or escalations. Certain things are done as part of the automated process user, APU. So if you want to track what is this user doing and how is that executing and why is it failing, you can track the automated process. This is helpful in platform events because platform events are triggered by the automated process. Okay. So you don't have just the plain option of filtering out or tracing a user. You can actually trace a class, you can actually trace a trigger, you can actually trace a process. Process as in a process builder, a flow, or even a platform event. Anything that is in the context of the automated process user. Okay, for those of you who don't know automated process user, just give a read, you will understand. It's a user that Salesforce has internally and you can just trace it. The best part is you can actually trace it. Okay, now let's talk a bit about the best practices. The only best practices that I have not told you, there are two things basically, or rather there are two things. The first thing is, see, because it gives you a start time and an end time, a lot of people do this. They put a start time, they put an end time. Right now it is 10:04 a.m. I'll just put 22:04 a.m. What is that? That's 12 hours of logs that you want to generate. Are you going to work straight away for 12 hours? No. Why should the system be working on behalf of you? It should not. Why are you basically pressing and forcing the system to generate logs for 12 hours? What will that do? That will create records in the Apex log table. And with that, when that happens, what will happen? Your system will get impacted in terms of performance. It will slow down. Okay, a lot of people might complain the developer console is loading very slow. I don't know why it's hung up in between. That's because somehow some people have created debug logs and those logs are getting generated. That slows down the developer console also. Okay, why is it a concern? See, I created a log for 12 hours. You also created a log for 12 hours and then another 12 developers created the same. How many logs will get generated? Imagine. Right? And they'll be generated every second. You see, we did just one plain sales account insert and 3 logs got created. 3 logs. So one plain account insert, 3 logs are getting created. Imagine the amount of log and the size of the log that will get created if multiple people have created them for Apex classes, triggers, and users. So it's always good to ensure that your log levels are set within certain time limits. For example, you can do a 30-minute log. That's a good timeline. You started now. So the reason you're putting a debug log is because you're debugging something. So give yourself 30 minutes. Let's try for 30 minutes. Correct? So that's a good time to spend. And if it stops after 30 minutes, you can again renew it. You can again edit the filter and you can extend it. But don't create a filter right away for 12 hours, 10 hours, 6 hours, 4 hours, because you are not working for that long. So don't let the system also work for that long. That will create a problem for other users. Okay, so that's the first best practice. That's the first tip I would like to give. The second thing is the size of the log. Whenever you are creating a debug level, right, always ensure you choose the right kind of level and you don't go with everything that is finest, because most of the times you don't need that information, right? If you want to just take a look at the debug level information, just put the Apex code as debug, that's it, or info. If you want to just take a look at, let's say, database related updates, just create something for database and leave everything as none. Just keep the debug log for the system. Even that is sufficient enough for you to be able to understand where my code is failing and what is going wrong. You don't need a lot of things. See, NBA, Wave, Apex profiling, callout. If you're not doing integration, why to put final in callout? No sense, right? If you're not worried about the validation rule, just move this to none. If you're not worried about any flow execution, any processes, automation, keep it to none. Better, right? Because what will that do? That will basically create a debug log, but it will not be as big as you want, right? For example, not as big as you want, but it will not be as big as you need it to be. So 236 KB of log, this is sufficient enough for me to understand what's happening. But if you see, even this takes 2 seconds to load. What if your log is 1 MB size, and it happens, it is 1 MB, 2 MB size logs. They are there. Right? So it's not sensible, and that happens only because you keep all the log levels to finest when you don't even need it. Okay, so don't think that I'm scolding you, but I'm just trying to tell you that it's always good to keep a shorter time frame and to keep a log level which is relevant to your requirement. The thing that you're debugging, just try to put a log around it. Okay, great. Now one more final tip is, now a lot of people are troubled with this logs, right? This Apex logs. So if you see, you will get logs getting generated every second, every millisecond. If you have integrations, logs are getting generated unlimited. All logs are coming here. It's slowing down your performance, right? And if you take a look at the logs getting generated and you want to actually get rid of them, right? So there are two options. You can either go to debug and you can say clear, and you can say clear log panel, right? So the logs are cleared from here. Okay, and now if you go ahead and say execute, you see the rows are available, the Apex logs are there. It's just that your log screen has been cleared out. It has not been deleted from the system. But if you don't need this anymore, you can always just go ahead and choose this records, and you can just simply say delete row. What will that do? That will delete those 5 Apex logs from your system. So you'll get some space, some breathing space. Your system will get some breathing space. Refresh. So all the 5 have gone. Now your log panel is also clear. Your query editor also does not have any logs, and now you can work fresh with new logs. Okay. So that's one more thing that you can do. You can actually click on the, not here. You can actually click on clear log panel from here, Shift Alt G, or you can actually just delete the Apex logs from your query. Okay, you cannot put user delete statement. You cannot do something like a delete statement, because Apex log delete statement does not work. So you have to always come to the developer console, select the logs, and then you have to delete it manually by clicking the delete rows button. Okay, one more interesting thing to see is, I told you that you can use this log section, right? So here you see normally your logs, meaning the person you are logged in as, correct? You are logged in as Himanshu right now. So all the logs that will come up are for you. But let's say you are looking to debug for someone else. So you created a debug log, which is for, let's say, some other user. Okay, let's say it is for the security user or integration user. So in that case, how do you see that log coming on the developer console? You will not see it. So for you to be able to see it, you need to go to the debug and you need to uncheck this box, show my current logs only. So you don't want to see only your current logs. You want to see the system logs. So just uncheck this and you can now see all the logs. Okay, this will show you all the logs, whether it is Apex class, Apex trigger, someone else's log, your log, every log will come here. Then enjoy. Okay. There's one more thing that you can do. You can actually right click and you can actually open the raw log, or you can even download the log. If you know there's some data in your log that is too big and Salesforce has trimmed it in the view here, because it normally does it. If you have trimmed it, you can always click on the right click and you can download the log, or you can open the raw log. That will open the entire log in its entirety. Okay, it will not hide anything from you. And if you want to see it in, let's say, a Notepad++ or Atom or Visual Studio Code, you can download the log and then open the file there. All right, I think that's all I wanted to talk about debug logs. I hope there's definitely more than one new thing that you learned, and just comment below debug logs make sense if you got to know and understand debug logs better. And the same debug logs apply for anything that you are doing on the front end which calls Apex, right? You might have a Lightning Web component, you might have a Aura component, you might have a flow that's calling Apex. So this debug logs works for all of them, right? It's just that the context from where it is starting and the user for which it is starting, you need to set up a debug log for that. As simple as that. Okay, great. All right, so with that in mind and with all that I said, let's close this topic here, and we are good with debug logs. And I hope you'll use debug logs a bit more efficiently now, and you'll be able to figure and filter out errors and exceptions and problems in your code and debug them faster and more efficiently. All right, cool. That's all from this video. If this was helpful, do share this on your LinkedIn community and tag me. That would be very helpful. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.